Morning, everyone. My name is Karen Player from Virtual Excursions Australia, and today we are very excited to be presenting a session for Small Business Month regarding designing online events to connect for success. I'd first like to pay respects to the traditional owners of the land of which we are all coming from across Australia today, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging leaders, and anyone with Indigenous heritage that's joining us here today. So it's a really exciting session. This is number 2. Of sessions, we ran one yesterday and had some really great comments and questions. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat or the Q&A. So you might want to just at the moment share with us where you're coming from and what you'd like to get out of your session today. And yeah, pop your questions in the Q&A as we're going forward as well. I'd like to also welcome our other presenters. We have Sybil Williams from Atomic Tangerine, and we also have Ben Newsom from Physics Education. And today we are going to share all of our experiences with you, the good, the bad, the not so good. So we will be really open and share the things that have happened to us and really give you some advice and experiences from us about what we have learned over the years and how we have come up with some of the best strategies to deliver and design your online events. So we'll be looking at everything from marketing to then planning your session in terms of what platforms you might need to be using to deliver those programs, and then what can happen during a session as well, lots of troubleshooting. We will be referring back continually to the idea of plan and test and know your audience. So there are going to be a few key takeaways that we'll talk about throughout the whole session. You will be receiving a copy of the recording as well, and a training manual that we've put together with a lot of this information too. So don't worry if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed or bombarded, you will get a lot of follow-up resources as well. Excellent. Well, we are going to throw over to Sybil from Atomic Tangerine to start us off today. So let's get going.
Hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm coming at you from Wongal Land in the inner west of Sydney today. I'm just going to quickly share my screen because I find I present much better if I've got a structure. So just a bit about me. I am CEO and founder of Atomic Tangerine, which is a boutique marketing agency, and we've done a lot of, over the years, a lot of events marketing. So I've got 20 plus years in communications and marketing, makes me sound very old, but I've also got a background in training and events. So we focus on working with for-purpose organisations and small and medium-sized businesses. And one of the kind of things that I might refer back to during the day is for one of my clients over a 5-year period, we had 25% growth year on year for a big annual event. So during the time of doing that, and that takes a lot of focus and time, we're talking about events with 2,000 people, this and paid events. So this was it. I've honed a lot of my event marketing skills during that process. I've got a lot of things that work and a lot of things that didn't. So I will get going. I've just put a fun fact in about me. I was actually born in Barbados and I've lived in 10 countries. So I've got a bit of a global perspective on life. Okay, so designing online events starts way before you're even thinking about how you're going to deliver. It starts before the event. So we need to make sure we have the right people in the room. We need to really sell the value of attending, and we need to build interest and fear of missing out over time. And I think that's really important. And coming back to what Karen said, this is where the planning starts, right at the very beginning of understanding what that event needs to look like. So I think where we always start, and if somebody comes to me and says, I want to run an event, one of the first things we need to determine is why. Why are you running this event? There are lots and lots of reasons why people run events. They're a really great marketing tool. They're also a great education tool. So you might be looking for new prospects. For example, I had a client who was a mortgage broker, and one of the ways that they kind of got new prospects was they ran in tandem with some a real estate agent and a conveyancer, they ran first home buyer seminars. So these were education seminars. They were either in person or online. But what happened was they were walking and giving. There was no hard sell. It was just about beginning to build those relationships. You could be educating your market. I mean, I know Ben and Karen work a lot with education. So there might be a learning objective that you have, or it might be educating your market about a problem that they should know about, that maybe you can help solve. It might be that you are just genuinely just wanting to sell more products and services. And again, I'll come back to what the value is for the customer, but be really clear about what your objectives are. Are you wanting just to build networks? Maybe you're trying to build a referral partnership. Are you building relationships with people who are already in your pipeline? You know, are you trying to establish more credibility? Are you adding value to your current customers? And by that, I mean, you know, are you trying to help them use your product or service in a better or different way? Or are you actually just trying to give them something that, again, it's that walk-in giving perspective? Are you trying to give them something extra to keep them loyal? Are you trying to upsell or onsell? You know, you've used this, maybe you should think about this. Maybe you're launching a new product or service. Maybe you're just trying to build credibility in the market by presenting some research or really showing that you are up to date and at the forefront of your industry. Or maybe it's just kind of a way of producing content that you can then repurpose and share. So a vast range of reasons why you might use an event, and events obviously online or offline. But with each of those, once you've identified why you are running the event, you also then need to identify, what does success look like? Because if you don't know what success looks like, you don't know if this has been a useful exercise to do. So if it's new prospects, how many new prospects are you looking to get out of this event? If it's selling more products, what's the uplift in sales that you're looking for? So really try and put some metrics around, is this successful or is this not? Again, that's a broader marketing approach that I always recommend, is that test and learn. But if you don't understand what you're trying to achieve, you'll never know if you achieved it or not. The next thing, once you've identified your objectives, is to actually think about it, change hats completely, take off the business owner hat, put on the attendee hat, and start thinking about, for your attendee, firstly, who is your attendee? Define those. You know, for that mortgage broker, it really was people who haven't yet bought their first home. So often that would be people in their late 20s, early 30s, maybe these days 40s. And it would be maybe people who have just coupled up, or you know, they're in that kind of stage of their lives. How do you find those people? Be as specific as you can. You know, what are their aspirations? What are their goals? What do they do? What are their interests? Like, really try and think about who it is that you're targeting, because that will help you understand their motivations and therefore what value they're going to get out of your event. It will also help you identify where they are, because there's an old thing in marketing: you want to fish where the fish are. You want to go to where they are and pop your little line in the water. You don't want to go to open water, pop a line in and just hope that they're there. Once you've identified your attendee types, and there may be more than one, you know, if, again, going back to that first homeowner thing, you might have people who are maybe they are professionals, doctors, lawyers in their late 20s, that they've graduated and now they're in their first job and they're in a position that they might now want to buy a property. Maybe it is people who have just coupled up, you know, they're in their 30s, they're settling down, maybe thinking about starting a family. You know, whatever it is, however many audience types you've got, define them, be really specific. And then for each one, articulate all the value that they will get out of attending this event. So is it that they're going to learn about this new problem that is facing the world or facing them specifically, and obviously as a byproduct, how your product or service might help solve that problem? Are they going to develop networks with other people in their industry? Are they going to understand a problem? Are they going to sell more product? Are they going to sell more products? So potentially, if you had a platform, a marketplace that helped other people sell, by talking about your marketplace, you're helping them solve their problem, which is that they need to sell more products. So always think about what is in it for them. What are they being kept up at night? And how will this help deliver to that objective? What's their objective? It might be how to apply new tools. It might just be that this is a fun event, or, and you want people to come along and play games and, feel good. That's a very valid thing, but you need to be quite specific about why that would be important to your specific audience. So once you've identified who your audience is and been really specific, and you've identified what they will get out of this, and trying to link that back to their cares and objectives and goals and motivations, then the next thing is to figure out how you're going to reach these attendees. So it's all very well to know who they are, but how do you find them? So I always like to break this down into two fairly macro groups. One is people you already have a relationship with, and one is new contacts, and they need slightly different approaches. So I'm going to start at the bottom of this slide just to mix things up a bit. What is a common tactic for both audiences is kind of that broad brush stuff. So your social media, your organic social media. So that's posting in your channels, promoting it, sending out, information about presenters or about little snippets of what they might get out of this. So that's constant flow of content, all with the call to action to register for the event. There's also social media advertising, where you can get quite specific about the audience that you're looking for. So that could be retargeting. So you could upload a list of your current contacts and make sure that they see these promotional pieces for your event. Or it might be that you, using your definition of who your audiences were that we've already done at this point, you can actually put that into places like LinkedIn, places like Facebook, and get really specific about the audience that you want this event promotion to end up in front of. There's other digital advertising. So, you can, if you've got business partnerships, people that you work with, referral relationships, they could be sending this out to their email newsletter, as an example. You could be having takeovers of different websites, whether it's with a banner or advertising or whatever. You can do paid editorial on online news sites. There's a bunch of different other digital advertising that can get you in front of the people that you want to target. And then don't forget about physical advertising, because in this day and age of digital, a lot of people are really focused on, well, how do we get on this screen in front of people's eyes, on their phone? How do we do that? But actually, physical advertising is not a dead medium. People are still paying a lot of money for billboards on the backs of buses. And I'm not saying that necessarily you want to spend that much money, although, a lot of theatre is still advertising in that way. So don't discount it if for a big event, especially a big event with broad appeal. But if you're thinking about local events, so I talked about yesterday a potential Pilates studio. Let's say you've got a Pilates studio, you're going to run an online event which talks about, the benefits of the Pilates technique. If you notice, I just thought to sit up straight. The benefit of the Pilates technique for ergonomics in your home office. So that could be what your event is about. It's an online event. You're targeting working from home mums potentially, but your objective is to get more people into your Pilates studio. Now, to do that, you're going to need people in the area, because no one's going to travel 3 hours to come to your Pilates studio. So you really want to be quite specific about how you promote this event to people in your area, quite geographically limited. Think about letterbox drops. I mean, people think, oh, poo, doesn't work. Especially in this age of people working from home, we're seeing the ROI, return on investment, on physical advertising, especially for local, especially for local types of events. It's becoming more and more effective as digital is getting less and less effective because more and more people are doing that. So just have it be broader in how you think about how you might promote your event and get those right people there. So the next thing I kind of want to talk about is that promotion. So how do you do it? What are you trying to do, and what sorts of resources should you be putting towards promotion? I have come up with a bit of a rule of thumb, and it's not out of nowhere. I have been using this rule of thumb, but also it's a big broader, this is an industry standard, is 5 to 10% of your either total event spend or your total projected return. So when I say total projected return, what do I mean? I mean, if you're selling a product, or if you are selling tickets potentially, you want to kind of think about, what do you think you'll earn out of this? What does that 5% uplift in sales translate to in dollar terms? And what's 5 to 10% of that? So that kind of, think about that for your media spend. It might just not just be media. It might be, you need to print those letterbox drops. You need to pay a graphic designer to do the branding. Think about all of that when you're thinking about promoting your event. In terms of timing, when do you start promoting your event? Well, ASAP is the answer, but you need to have a plan, and we'll come on to that. I would say a minimum of 6 weeks out to start promoting, if you possibly can, because that allows you not just to go out with one message, one invitation, but to use all of those different value propositions that you've already put together and you've thought about, to use all of those different ones, so that somebody may see, come along because you're going to learn about this, and they think, yeah, that's interesting. But then they see, come along and you'll get this, and they think, oh yes, that's what I want. There's also an old marketing adage that says that somebody needs to see a brand 7 times before they buy. Now, I don't know if that is still true or based in data, but I would absolutely say that people need to see a brand kind of multiple times before they trust it, before they build familiarity with it, and before they then buy. And so often you don't want to just invite people once and think, oh, that didn't work because nobody signed up or 2 or 3 people signed up. You need to be continuing to go back to them with different messages, reiterating the value in different ways. And you can also then be talking to the people who did register at the beginning and make sure that they really understand that they need to be at this event, like giving them more of those messages about what's coming up, who's presenting, what's the exciting headline, what's the new thing that's been in the news that, you're going to be covering. So keep that communication going. That also limits the number of dropouts. So, you tend to think if you're running an event, 10 to 15% just will be no-shows. You also might, if it's an outdoor event and it's raining, you're going to get a much bigger drop-off. So just kind of think about, how do you really try and get as many of those people engaged? They're engaged enough to register, but continuing to be engaged over that whole period until the event. Pricing is not something that's going to make sense and be appropriate for all events. But if you are pricing an event, so if you're running a conference or you're selling an online course, that your pricing will depend on the size, value, and type of event. And I would absolutely recommend doing a bit of competitor research and figuring out what else is in the market, what sorts of prices are they charging for similar things. But also know that once you establish yourself as running really valuable events, you can start putting your prices up, because people then have that FOMO. They have fear of missing out. So they are going to pay a little bit more every year or every 6 months or however often you run this event. So you will be able to increase your prices over time. And the other thing with pricing is always consider early bird benefits, consider some kind of promotion. Maybe you do a Black Friday sale on your tickets for your event. Consider times when you can use what's going on in the world to do a 2-for-1. Maybe it's Valentine's Day, do a 2-for-1, bring along your partner to this event. So just think about ways that you can promote your event, especially if you're pricing it. Now I've kind of vaguely mentioned the comms plan, and we're going back to Karen's point at the very beginning, planning. So we've already done a bit of scoping. We understand who our audience is. We know what we want to get out of this event. Next, it's about the comms plan. And this is so central, and it's one piece that I think a lot of people kind of forget about, which is before you even start promoting, you need to have a plan of what you're going to do. Now that plan might flex, it might change. You might do a bit more here because you're not getting enough response. You might do a bit less because actually you're filling up really quickly. Whatever's happening, it will flex, but at least you have a plan so you know if you're deviating from it or not. So when you're making a plan, and it doesn't have to be complex, at Atomic Tangerine, we build all of our comms plans in Excel. So we have dates along the top, different channels down the side, and then we have color coding depending on which audience, which thing is going to go to or be targeting. So consider your audience segmentation and personas. What do they care about? We've talked about what they would value. Consider how you weave those messages of what they will value into the comms that target that particular audience. Think about the channels. Now, channels, we've talked about, it could be anything from social media, it could be email. I just realized I started at the bottom of that slide and didn't go up. So I'm just going to really quickly run back because that's an important point that I don't want to miss out on, which is this especially for current contacts. Really think about targeted, specific, segmented messaging, emails. Keep them as personalized as you can. Talk to those specific value points. And you can also do direct mail. And when I say direct mail, physical in your letterbox mail. Make it beautiful. Make it on nice paper stock. Really, if you want to get into those high value customers, current customers, past customers, be really specific and targeted to them. So you obviously can't do that with new customers because you don't know their details. So that's why you have to rely on that broader brush stuff for them. But with the people that you already know, really think about how you contact them directly and put something directly into their mailbox, whether it's an email mailbox or your mailbox. Sorry. Okay, back to here. So that's your channels. You're going to have email, you're going to have EDMs, you're going to have social media, organic, different channels. You're going to have social media, paid for, promoted, boosted, whatever. You're going to have whether it's digital channels or broader physical channels. You think about all of those things and think about how you pace that communication. So you don't want to send it all on one day and everyone gets one big boost on everything and it's all overwhelming. You want to kind of pace that out and get closer towards the end. Think about that rhythm. Really think about, if somebody has seen it once, how much longer do you want to wait until they see it again? Like, what does that look like? Think about your creative and your brand. It's really important. There's a reason I've used that blue banana. Think about something that people are going to remember because, again, you want everything to be branded so that people will recognize it and they'll start on that 6th, 7th, 8th time that they see something from your brand. They're going to have an immediate neural connection with it. And so really make sure that you keep that brand really, really specific and consistent across the whole comms plan and into your actual presentation and past that. Think about how your customer journey works. So how are they going to register? Do you use something like Humanitics? That's my call, by the way. I think Humanitics is awesome and they do a lot of good in the world as well, which is great. But there are a number of different registration things, including Eventbrite and all sorts of other things. And then once they have registered, how do you confirm that? What do you send to them? What is the information that they need? And then how do you remind them? Is it 2 days before? Is it an hour before? Like, what are you doing to remind them of that? Think about social proof and testimonials. So if you're running a series of events, capture those testimonials and use them in your future marketing. I went to see this, learn everything I needed to know about, sitting up straight when I'm working from home, or learn everything I needed to know to buy my first property. Now I'm on my second investment property, whatever that looks like. Again, you ideally try and get those testimonials to speak to some of those value propositions that you've identified earlier. Again, building FOMO, accelerate your comms towards the end. 10 days to go, 5 days to go, 2 days to go, and give those extra, we've got a really special guest. We're running a giveaway. Whatever that thing is, to build that excitement and fear of missing out. And then always make sure you've got your comms plan doesn't stop when the event happens. You have a post-event comms plan as well. So that's where you gather that feedback. That's where you use assets that have been generated through the webinar, and it might be some snippets of videos with some top tips. It might just be some of the graphics or a slideshow or a workbook or whatever that looks like. Make sure you have that prepared and ready to go, and use that to build those relationships out over time. And then accentuate the lack of missing out. So well done, congratulations, you came along, well done, you didn't miss out on this really, really fabulous information. Now, having said all of that, you've got your comms plan, you've done all of that stuff, and it's still 6 weeks out, and now you're ready to go. And the first thing you do fails dramatically, and I've been there. As you're going along, you need to learn and pivot. So maybe you put a bunch of money behind a LinkedIn promotion, and you realize that your organic social post on Pinterest is getting all of the detail and none of this money's working. Don't throw good money after bad. Stop promoting on LinkedIn and go and start doing more on Pinterest. So really, you might have a great plan, but if it's not working, don't be scared to learn and pivot about what you're going to do. So that's the comms plan. That's the whole event. So we've started with what you want to achieve. We've gone through who your audiences are and what they will get out of it. We've talked about how we promote to them, and then we've talked about the comms plan. So any questions? I will stop sharing my screen.
Excellent. Well, we do have a couple of questions that have come through. Thank you so much for sharing all of your insights as well. Every time I listen to this, I take so much away as well. So Mary's asked a little bit about the paid editorial links.
Yeah. So in terms of, I'm looking at paid editorial links. So you can, it depends on your industry, obviously. So there's unfortunately, no central list of everyone who does paid editorials, but a lot of the major newspapers do. A lot of the industry mags will. So, at the moment I've been working with CMO magazine, not for me, but for another client who has a great marketing story to tell. So you can buy packages typically. So on the page, you'll have an advertisement at the bottom and then an article, which is it's paid editorial. So that happens a lot. So they're available kind of, if you go and search for media packs on a particular news site or magazine site, search for media packs and you'll often find that paid media is included. And if they're not advertising it, I still bet you they're doing it. So try and get in contact with somebody who works there and talk to them about editorial.
And Mary's got a follow-up to that as well, just in regards, like, what's the kind of scale of money that's required to pay? Oh, gosh. How long's a piece of string?
Yeah, pretty much. So recently, and this is top end, recently somebody reached out from AFR on behalf of another client wanting to sell exactly that. So the AFR do paid media. This is what I'm saying. Everyone does these paid editorials. And I think it was like for one page. So it's a full page in the AFR with an article and like a third of the page as as an advert, it's like $16,000. So we're not talking cheap at that end of town, but you bring it down to, you know, IT magazines, computer magazines, and you might make $1,000 or something. So how long is a piece of string? You know, it's often if you don't have the kinds of budgets, but you do have a relationship with a partner who publishes something, you know, sometimes you can do a bit of a quid pro quo. If you've got somebody speaking at one of your events who has those relationships, you never be afraid to ask people for help. They can only say no. It's not the end of the world. But if you're walking in giving, so you're not just saying, can you help me, give me stuff? You're saying, how can we work together? What can I give you in return for, you know? Yeah.
And I guess, you know, going back to your percentage of marketing as well, it's like, you know, what do you think you're going to be able to get out of this? Is it value for money in your, you know, marketing budget? And again, depending
Absolutely.
on what you've got available.
And, you know, thinking about the channels specific to your audience. So if you're going to be going for school leavers, you know, who are interested in the arts, you ain't going to be putting something in the FI, you know? So really think about where are they hanging out. Yeah.
Excellent. And Mary's also got a question regarding humanities about, is there a charge to use?
So for free events, no. So for free events, same as Eventbrite, I think that neither of them charge for registrations. There is so they take a percentage of ticket sales. So I can't remember off the top of my head what that percentage is. It'll be on their website. So if you are having paid events, you just need to build that into your budget.
And yeah, they really have a lot of great social things. So you can actually pick where you want
your donation to go.
So
yeah.
It is really, they are very good to use.
Yeah,
so.
and Humanities, they're an Australian company, which Eventbrite isn't. And they, just if anyone doesn't know their model, they take a percentage of ticket sales, but of that, a percentage goes to the charity of your choice. So you can pick a charity that aligns with your business. So it might be an education charity, you know, if you're doing education stuff. So yeah, it's a wonderful organization. Cannot sing their praises highly enough.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing all your insights, Sybil, and stick around. We'll hear from you again later on.
Will do. Awesome. Thanks.
Excellent. So for those of you that haven't met me before, my name's Karen Player from Virtual Excursions Australia. I'm one of the co-founders and directors, but I also have another hat, which is the small business owner of Australian Environmental Education. So I look at this from both perspectives in terms of my own business as well as helping support other businesses through Virtual Excursions Australia. We do a lot of education and training programs, which this is part of that. So a lot of our ideas are around thinking about what our audience is and the best way to deliver engaging content. We will share a link to previous training that we did for Small Business Month, which was about maximising the engagement in session. This program, we're really focusing on about what you do beforehand, that designing program. So we will overlap a little bit as well. So once you know your audience, you know you've got your comms plan sorted out, you need to be thinking about what platform. What are you going to be delivering and how? The session we've got on today is a great example. We are using a Zoom webinar and it's an information giving session. We're not asking you to go away and do an activity and then come back and discuss it. We're not asking you to go off into breakout rooms. We're not doing a YouTube live stream and we're just having a Twitter back channel. You know, we were very focused on when we run our training sessions to use a platform that we're really familiar with, because you'll get a better engaging experience throughout the session if we know what we're doing. And that'll be part of the idea of testing. Planning and testing. So our recommendation is to use whichever digital online platform you're most comfortable with. So we don't advocate for any particular one. It's what you're using. So if your business and you've been using Microsoft Teams or Google Meet, then you know it's probably best that you stick with that, because you're going to be more comfortable and you'll know where all the buttons and the settings are in session. And it will be far easier and you'll get the best engaging program coming out. But think about the variety of of ideas as well. Facebook Live, YouTube Live, LinkedIn also now has a digital presenting platform. We were actually going to test that out for this program, but you need to have over 150 members. So that was something to have in the background. We didn't want to not have our comms plan out soon enough, and we didn't want to wait, which now we have 150, just in case, because we wouldn't have had time to test. And we'd be using a new platform and trying something different, and it could have been an absolute disaster because we wouldn't have had time to test. So we decided to use Zoom webinar. If you don't have webinar enabled in your Zoom or don't have Zoom at all, again, think of another platform. Think about whether or not it is a meeting or a webinar as well. If we were running this in a meeting style, we'd be able to use breakout rooms, which can be really valuable part of your program if you're having more discussions, or if you've got an overarching topic that can break down into sub areas. So you might have a presenter talking about a different area, and then each of those presenters go off into another breakout room, and your audience can go into whichever one they like to have that further discussion. So it really is always going back to audience. What is the purpose of your program? Who is your audience? And what is the best way to engage with them? And that will help you choose your platform. If you are trying a new platform or new technology within that platform, practice. Do a practice session, have a really good plan, have an agenda. Sybil, Ben and I all have our sort of agenda in front of us that we're going to stick to help us make sure that we provide all the content that we would like to share with you today. So again, it's that idea of having a plan, having a comms plan, having an in-session plan, and those things really can help you work out what is the best style, I guess, and platform to use. So as I've said, our example here today for this event was Zoom using a webinar function. We're doing an information giving event. We've invited guest speakers, experts, to help us tell the story and deliver the training today. Ben and I are not experts in marketing. So to have someone like Sybil come in and share over 20 years experience specifically of marketing online and digital events means that the program that we've put together has a lot more authenticity and it's a lot more valuable. So really think about that. Do you have someone that you could bring in to help value add your program? Don't invite guest speakers if they don't add anything to your content, but they are really, really valuable. You can have a panel. So we've done sessions before that we've had maybe 5 or 6 people that have all done maybe a 5 to 10 minute presentation. But at the end, all of those people can be on screen and the audience has an opportunity to ask every one of those questions. Sometimes that discussion is really valuable, and be prepared. You don't always know exactly where those questions will lead as well. So be a little bit flexible. Give yourself enough time to be able to maneuver with your agenda. Something might happen, one of your guest speakers might be delayed. We've had this quite a lot when we've worked with people overseas. Sometimes it's a time difference that people get caught up with. Sometimes it's just, technical problems that were unforeseen. So being able to think, okay, well, the speaker that's going on second is here. They're going to go on first now, and then the person coming in later. So just be aware when you're working with a team of people within a session, have some flexibility in place. But having that plan means that it's easy to switch things around. That can very much be useful. The idea, we're going to talk a little bit more with Ben later on about some of those interactivities that we can include during the session to make it more engaging as well. For what we're doing today, we're switching speakers, we're having a crossover, and we have thought about how that will work during the session. One of the things we're also doing is supplying that follow-up resources. And Sybil really spoke about that. What do you do after your session? How do you continue that engagement and the conversation with your audience? So we are supplying videos, even past videos to help, provide a greater diversity of resources for you and a training manual. And this will be something that we will send out and probably do a follow-up as well. There'll be an evaluation coming from Small Business Month. So there'll be a little package of information to help us follow up, and with all of our contact details so you can engage with us further as well. When we put together the comms plan for this session, we also looked at our previous programs we ran for Small Business Month and used that as you did this training, maybe you would be interested in this. So being able to value add if there's another opportunity to engage coming up. So that's a really good place to come from as well. Excellent. And one of the things that you can see is happening as well, we've got Ben, who's presenting in a few moments. He's actually putting a lot of things in the chat. That's an engaging way that you can use to value add in session as well. So he's supplying contact information about the presenters while they're speaking and often putting links about some of the key content that's coming up as well. So that can be really, really useful. It's just popping up and I can see something else from Ben there as well. So thinking about the structure in your session and what technologies you might need to be using. If you are running a really big event, recommend having a moderator. So this can be a person that is following the chat, is facilitating the questions to presenters, and is helping troubleshoot issues that may arise. If you've got hundreds of people, that can be really, really useful. Now, today we're actually doing the moderation ourselves. So when we're not presenting, we're sitting there watching the chat and the Q&A and helping facilitate that engagement going on behind the scenes. Again, the bigger the event, really think about whether you can do everything yourself. It does come down to a lot of practice. If you're really familiar with your platform, you might be able to do just that and manage all of the chat and the delivery at the same time. If you're just facilitating the session and you are maybe just doing the introduction and you've got a suite of guest speakers, you may well be able to then be behind the scenes and do all of that moderation. But if you're doing a lot of presenting in session yourself, definitely think about having a second person, sometimes just maybe even a friend or family to help if you don't have a large team that you can draw upon, to have someone in the session just helping with a little bit of the tech support and the moderation. It will help things run more smoothly. The larger the event, sometimes the more moderation. We'll get Ben to give us an example in a few moments of a massive event. They had a team of 4 or 5 people helping with the moderation. If you know there's some frequently asked questions, actually having them as a digital file just off screen is a fabulous opportunity. And you know that when someone's presenting or afterwards that you can just cut and paste those answers in so you don't have to be distracted and typing as well. That can be a really great way. If you know there are some really likely questions or some content that you want to share during session, have that ready to go. Really, it always comes back to know your audience, practice and plan and test. If you are looking at doing something more dynamic, you might want to consider some vision switching software. Ben will talk a little bit more detail about things like OBS and those kinds of things when you can do overlays. Again, if you're not familiar with these kinds of technologies, test or have a tech support person that is. If you're presenting, you may just want to be the presenter. You may need to have a moderator and a tech person, or hopefully they're the same person, to help support that engagement in session as well. So think about that. How complicated do you want to go? Do you want to add extra cameras and extra lighting and all of these things? Are they going to make your program better, or are they going to be a distraction? Are they going to distract your audience, or are they going to distract you? Now, I have had it myself after even lots of years of experience where I've lost my PowerPoint. I've tried to screen share. I had too many things open in the background and it absolutely failed. And I ended up being outside my system thinking I was sharing screen, but I actually wasn't sharing it through the platform I was using. Now, that can be an absolute disaster. I was able to have someone go, oh, we can't see that. And I was able to fix it quite quickly. But if I wasn't as familiar with that platform, it may have taken me a while to fix that as well. So definitely something to be aware of in that perspective as well. Looking at your audience, your tech ability can be really important as well, and making sure that you practice, especially if you're trying something new. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't. It doesn't mean that adding an extra camera to zoom into something that you're trying to show that value adds your content is absolutely worthwhile doing. Switching cameras, as Ben will show, can be quite a simple way to make your session engaging. But don't do anything that you're not practiced at enough, or if you don't think it's going to value add. Okay, I think that's enough of listening to me at the moment. I know we've got a few questions in there as well. I'll get Ben to join me. I think I made you co-host, but I'll just add you. There we go. So Mary says, thanks for the links. So I've thrown you in it a few times, Ben, with lots of things that you will go on into more detail as well. And thank you very much for putting all of those ideas with the OBS links and polls and quiz. That's a great one. Ben will go into that in a little bit more detail, but it can be a really great way to create that engagement. Breaks up a session. You can often, a lot of the platforms have their own polling in their platform, but you can have external links. We use Kahoot a lot when we do trivia and quizzes with school students. And it's been absolutely fabulous. Something that they're very familiar with now. They've been using it a lot, especially during COVID times. So a lot of the schools and the students are quite familiar with doing that. And it just means that you're using a piece of technology that's quite simple to help engage. Now, did I miss any questions from before there, Ben?
No, I think you've done really well. Thank you so much. I better cover what you said I was going to cover. That's probably part of the presentation. But look, thank you for joining us, everyone, wherever you are across Australia. I'm hanging out in Western Sydney on Durrag land, and we're going to have a little bit of a chat about, okay, right, you're in the event. Just really quickly, I've worked with Karen for over 10 years with Virtual Excursions Australia. It's one of the hats I wear as one of the directors. By the way, Virtual Excursions Australia, just briefly, in case you're wondering what that does, we work with museums, zoos, aquariums, and more around the country to run live virtual events in all sorts of different platforms, which is what Karen sort of talked about a bit, predominantly to school-aged children, but also to wider audiences. Thousands of kids every year we work with. I also work for a company called Physics Education, set that up about 18 years ago. We do science things and have done online programs for about 12 years. We work with about 3 million students or so now. I don't even know anymore. It's just a lot. And a lot of our programs can be done globally. In fact, just before this session, I was running a program into far north Canada, into a very isolated community, which actually brings up the point of what sort of Karen and Sybil have talked about with Know Your Audience. Imagine if you had to present your topic, your industry thing to another country. We've got the capacity now, which means that adds another layer of what could they source, what could they do during that particular meeting of yours, your webinar, that makes it interactive. So in my case, at literally an hour and 50 minutes ago, I had students on the other side of the globe following a PDF with simple materials they could get from well, honestly, it wasn't even the local shop. They were that isolated that they actually had to fly stuff in. I kid you not. There was actually a concern of a metal slinky. Would it arrive in time? And I was assuring them, it's okay. I will show you the demonstration with the slinky from here if it doesn't arrive. So this is like an extreme example. But the thing is, we have to sort of think about what can your audience do during the session. Now, we're talking with adults, so this is a webinar. I mean, traditionally during webinars, some of you may be listening in and answering emails, and that's quite okay. I've done it myself. Others will be very quickly taking notes, and others are sort of in between somewhere, shape or form. If you're dealing with a younger audience, they may not be able to split their attention as well. And so what tends to be needed during an online event that's live is every 10 to 15 minutes, especially with young ones, do something. It doesn't matter if it's a poll or a quiz or some sort of, hey, I want to show you something quickly. it can help. Now, by the way, with adults, it's actually not a bad idea too, but there is a bit of a thing that we get a little bit caught up with the tech. We get a little fancy because we can't help ourselves. We like pressing the buttons in this 21st century of ours, but pressing the buttons and making stuff pretty and fancy can actually be to your detriment if you get lost. Now, I'll give you a good example. Behind me, I've got a green screen. It's a standard virtual background. Now, I've got just a simple thing on my desk that I may want to show you. Now, what if I wanted to show you by zooming my camera out? I've got a camera that can move, tilt and tan to do these movements. So if I get my remote, which by the way, see me when I hold this, it kind of goes in and out of the virtual background. So it already breaks that illusion of it looking nice. If I try and show you that thing by going outwards, it's not very pretty, is it? I mean, I've got a coffee cup there. I've got a kind of a blue thing sitting there. It's not great. What if I pressed the wrong button and I'd gone even further out? And now I'm like disappeared behind the virtual background. And I may, if I didn't have this on self view, I may not even realize that I'm coming up blurry like this and coming in and out of the shot. And it's not that great. It doesn't really help. So I know we love our virtual backgrounds. They make things pretty, but sometimes, and I don't mind doing this, and if you're not as familiar with Zoom, though admittedly a lot of you are, if you look down the bottom left of your screen when you're actually presenting, you'll have a microphone and a camera. And next to them is a little arrow. And get used to that in this particular platform. Other platforms, you've got to find it in different spots because you can toggle things on and off. So I'm going to go down there and I'm going to choose virtual background. And frankly, I'm going to get rid of it because now I can do a little bit more of a, hey, let's look at my coffee cup because for some reason I want to show you my coffee cup during this session. Now I can go down there and go, oh, look, there's my coffee cup in full glorious detail. Now you'll notice it's slightly blurry. This is a autofocus camera and sometimes the focus isn't spectacular. It's trying to sort out my back, my hands, as well as the pattern. If you've got one of these particular tilt, pan, zoom cameras, sometimes just a little light tap will then resolve it. And now it's in glorious detail. Now, what if we didn't like that particular view? Maybe that's just too much. And I'm just going to go out and break the fourth wall slightly and go out and show you what I've got there. And again, see how I've been having fun with my autofocus. It's a little bit fuzzy and I find myself having to do a little tap. Almost I have to do like a little update or something on my camera. And by the way, updates can kill you during a presentation. But I've got here, rather than a fancy camera, which is on my desk over there. Thanks, Mary. You like my fancy camera? That's good. You can get a very cheap series of cameras. Now we're actually hardware and software agnostic. So I use a Logitech. You might find a different one. This is a Logitech sitting on a $20 tripod. And so if I have this here and we wanted to focus on my beautiful coffee cup, I would then go down the bottom left-hand side. I hit that little arrow thing, I click on it, and I have a bunch of different cameras. So I know I've got to make sure that I choose the right one. And you know what's actually happened, which I've found interesting? I've actually, when I pulled it over, it looks like it's unplugged itself. Because I'm pretty sure when I click on this now, and this is what happens like live in here, and I don't mind anymore because I'm used to doing programs. If I click on this, I'm almost sure it's going to show a different camera facing down at a green tablecloth. I'm about to find out. Yep, did it. It's there. I was almost sure it was going to do that. So part of the fun is actually trying to get these things to work because if you're using the same camera name, and this is a Logitech C615. I've got like several here in the room and they're all named the same. And so I could go into the settings and change it, but I'm actually used to seeing one above and one below my main camera. Now, if in case I'm kind of aware that might be an issue, I could of course put the coffee cup under that other camera and you could see it. Now, rather than making it cumbersome with me trying to fiddle with unplugging a USB, plugging it back in, even though it was literally on just then, you roll with your presentation. Unless it's absolutely critical that you have to show the other view, you move on. But imagine, and this is like a weird thing saying imagine, but if this was running and we'd flick to another view, all I've gone is gone from that view to the side view. So that can be handy from an engagement point of view, but you don't need fancy stuff. It literally is just a $20 tripod and there's a little screw attachment to put on the base. That's all it is. Now, what you can't see in my room is my setup. Now, during the event, of course, you may want to have a good structure with your webinar or your meeting and how you're going to have guests and how they're going to share screens and whatnot. The challenge is tracking all the stuff. If you can spare or the money or get someone to, you can borrow a computer monitor or a spare TV, highly recommend, I really do, a second monitor. The reason why, I've got currently right now 2 TVs. I have one below the camera and I have one above the camera. And in the middle is the camera, which means when I'm talking to you, I'm looking straight down the barrel of the camera and I'm talking to you quite directly. But just say I need to see the content. In fact, during a session like this, where we've got multiple panelists, Sybil, Karen, and myself, we do actually have a run sheet. So we know where we're up to. So I can very briefly glance just slightly off camera and I can see, okay, I'm still talking in platform tech and now an event. That's literally where we're at. Good. And so the team can follow me along as well. But by having in a secondary monitor, I can glance and it's way larger. The writing's a little bigger because honestly, I'm mid-40s. I'm starting to lose my eyesight. I need to see a little bit better. And I don't really break my view as much. Whereas if you've mounted a second camera, your main camera in a weird spot, you find them looking at a weird spot and then they come back to the monitor again, or they're looking at the monitor and then they come to the camera again. It's got this weird sort of thing that people do with their eyes. Just be aware of what that looks like. You can test that. Do a practice session. Set up your camera in a spot and honestly just get someone to watch you and see if they're happy with where you're looking. Now, again, the second monitor is handy because think about how many times, and I think a few of you will have done this, how many times have you wanted to share a thing? Might be a PowerPoint presentation, whatever it is, and you can't find the right tab, you can't find the right window, you can't find the right whatever it is. By having it on a second monitor, it's so much easier to click share, and you can still see what everyone in the audience is seeing. It can help. Now, there's also something else that can help with this too. You might be very interested in really knowing, just say you're the tech moderator of a larger presentation. You want to know what is the audience experiencing. The easiest way to do that, honestly, if you can have a second computer or second iPad, even a second phone, it doesn't matter. Have that with some headphones so it doesn't cause any audio problems as a tech mod. Put the headphones on with the device that's signed in as one of the people who just happened to join the webinar, and listen to it. Watch it. You'll see very clearly if someone has got this and their camera is off to one side and they're not even realizing. You'll see really fast what the issue is if yours is the thing as well. You may find that there's a funny view autofocus thing that this thing does. I'm going to tap it again. There you go. It may actually find that the sound quality is not quite great. And you may not be aware of it because you're happily talking in the room and it all sounds good to you, but the audience is not experiencing that very well. So having that secondary device with the moderator who's not live on camera, you can kind of check what's going on. And during the call, you can send a quick message going, hey, yeah, your microphone's not working so well. Can you swap the microphone? Or can we cut to another panelist? We'll sort you out and we'll come back. Having a second microphone isn't like you have to go spend a lot of money. You don't. I mean, in my room, I have a fancy microphone over there, but a lot of these cameras have a microphone attached anyway. So you'll find, again, we're in Zoom, so we'll talk the Zoom platform, but all the other platforms have different ways of selecting microphones. Get your microphone, like literally in the bottom left. So I'm doing that now, and I'm going to toggle, and we're just because we can. In the bottom left, I'm going to click on that little arrow next to the microphone. I'm going to click on it, and I'm just going to toggle the microphone. So currently, it's using my nice microphone. If I swap to the microphone HD webcam, which is currently facing a different direction, I'm now on a different microphone, so it will sound slightly differently. Now, this morning I haven't tested with the position of where that is sitting right now, whether this sounds good or bad. it may be slightly hollow. It may not even be that much of a difference, because if I go out, it's not actually that far away. Now, by the way, I know that this microphone is attached to this. So if I'm moving this around, there is a very strong chance that you're hearing rustling, you're hearing noise. Now imagine if that you've got a lapel microphone and you've got clothing all around that microphone, and you're moving around being that highly engaging presenter that you want to be, and your clothing's moving past the microphone. It's going to scrape on it. It's going to send that sound to the other audience, which is less good. Now, think about microphones from another standpoint. Now, I will actually swap back because I'm actually not sure if this is a great microphone or not. I'm going to go back to the other one. What if you're presenting in an outdoor environment in your event and a massive amount of wind comes up during your session? Now, a couple of ways around that. One way is, if you have spent a little bit of money, you can get microphones with a fluffy thing on it. In the industry speak, it's called a dead cat. I didn't call it that. It's what they call it, dead cat, but a fluffy thing. If you put the fluffy thing over the microphone, what it does is it stops the sound getting to the actual aperture of the microphone, and you don't have that huge hissing sound. If you don't have that, there is still a way to do it. And often I find that if you're going to present it with your phone and you're talking to your phone, rather than having the microphone that when you're on a speakerphone, what you could do is use the headphone jack with the cords, not those earbud ones that have like a Bluetooth gap. Have the cord and tuck the microphone under your collar, and as you talk, it blocks that wind. Now, I know Karen loves her sound when it comes to presenting, so she just popped on to say hi and talk a little bit more, I suspect, about it.
Just wanted to add on what you were saying as well. So for ideas, let's see, I'm going to do two things at the moment. I'm going to turn my virtual background off again, just to do what Ben was showing of what it looks like when you don't have a virtual background, and showing the warts and all of the back of my room. So this is the back of my office. It is not what I would usually be showing in a session, but certainly with my camera, I can rearrange where I am, zooming in, and I can actually theme my room. So I've got some fossils and things in the background, but the reason I want to show this is a headset. So if you're working in an office space or a shared space, and you're worried when you're talking that someone could answer the phone or someone could be walking past, something like a headset can be really excellent to enable you to focus your audio and to hear clearer of what's going on. These are also great for outside. You can see it's not quite a dead cat, but it does have the foamy thing on the background. And because it's really close to your mouth, closer than even a lapel mic, it's really great outdoors and when it's windy. So thinking about your audience, what you want to get across, and whether or not you want to do things outside, thinking about something like a headset. These are great. This is a Bluetooth one, so I'm not attached to anything, so I can wander around quite a bit. You don't want to go, too far away from the receiver, but absolutely you can do things outside. You can wander around. So really important, if you do want to do things, don't be concerned that you can't leave the room. If there's something, even if it's for a moment, it can change the dynamic of your session if you go from inside to outside and you're showing something specific. So I know that we've got some different people here. We've got Mary from Nature Knows that does outdoor forest therapy walks. Having something like a headset means that you can go from inside to outside quite simply. You can either put the headset on and change your audio input, or have the headset for the whole time, giving you flexibility to move around. So, we definitely like tips and tricks to do things cheaply, but there's a few pieces of tech that really can help. But start small, test things out, see how your sessions go. Once you're really comfortable with your platform and your delivery, then you can start adding these different things to go there as well. I'm going to show the very similar Logitech camera to probably what Ben's had. This is what I used presenting yesterday from Cairns. So I was pretty much locked in a hotel room in Cairns to deliver the session. And the speakers, so I had the headset just in case, not knowing where I'd be, but the speakers that were coming off the Logitech were great. Enabled really clear, sensible audio. So, think about that. And again, it goes back to making sure you've done your tests. Do tests and audio tests in a session on your own. Find a friend, a colleague, someone within your network, and set up a meeting with them and do testing back and forth. It's a great way to refine your camera skills in technology presentation, and you can help each other looking at some of your engagement styles. So don't ever be concerned about, pulling in family and friends or anyone in your network to do the practicing. It's very valuable, especially if it's someone else that's looking at digital events as well. There we go, Ben. That's my 2 cents.
Always like your 2 cents, Karen. In fact, this is one of these things that Karen and I have been doing this for so many years. We can't really pack it all into the time. So we're just going to ramble at you because we want to make sure we get as much detail. So just say you want to get your sound sorted and you haven't got time nor the money to deck out your space in like some full-blown recording studio. Yes, you can do that if you got the coin. I get that. But there are hacks, as always. Honestly, just think soft. If your room has soft surfaces, the sound won't bounce as much. So if you have to do this at home and I don't know, you've got the kids off to school, whatever, you've got some time and you've got to do this webinar, what everyone sees on camera doesn't necessarily have to be what is really in your room. So what if behind the camera, you literally haven't put away the washing? I kid you not. You know the washing rack with all the towels and stuff? They're great because what it actually does, it traps the sound. So if you feel like, you could even say to your respective partners, perhaps, I don't want to put away the washing because I've got an important webinar, because the sound actually will sound better. And so, of course, you may not be able to get away with your office space that way, but at least have soft furnishings or something to try and stop that hard hallway sound that it sounds like you're talking in a fish tank. It can improve it, definitely. Now, one thing is the Achilles heel of all this stuff. Doesn't matter how fancy your presentation is going to be, the Achilles heel is frankly the internet itself. Ain't no way around this. So what you need to do is have backups. In an event, stuff is going to go down. I know that Karen's experienced it, I've experienced it. We've seen in multi-point connections where you got multiple schools all connected in one go, and we've watched a storm roll down the coast and take out a school one at a time with the internet. And you literally can see it when you know their locations. Totally happens. So the way around it is make sure that whatever computer that you're using have the capacity for really quickly going to your hotspot on your phone, because that at least sorts out the internet side of things. And sometimes it'll happen to you mid-thing. The different platforms will give you warnings on your bandwidth, but if you're getting a low bandwidth warning, try swapping to the hotspot of your phone. Get used to being able to do that mid-call if you had to do it, especially if you're by yourself. Now, that doesn't bring up the point, and I must say, this is a risk on my behalf, but in this particular room, I'm using quite a nice computer. It's a gaming computer. It's got some power. I can do some stuff when I need it. It's hard connected to the electricity supply. And yes, I've had a blackout in this room mid-call. Thankfully, when we're doing actually important calls, when we know that we have to be on no matter what, I had a second presenter down in Melbourne. I'm in Sydney. And she was able to deal with it while I literally was getting myself back online. So if you have a laptop with a battery, probably good to use. In this case, I'm using a room that, the chances of a blackout are extremely low, but when they happen, they're catastrophic on a computer like that. Just be aware of that can go down. Now, I can see there's a question come here, and I think it's just at the top of my chat, so I've got to see who it was. It was probably Mary. Yes, Ian. Oh, cool. Hey, Ian, nice to see you. All right, so Ian's asked, there's a big virtual event coming up in a few weeks, which is likely to get more than 100 attendees. Has a Zoom Pro license, which limits you to 100 attendees. Is there anything to do without paying the huge increase in Zoom licensing? Challenging, because eventually that's their model. All right, so there is a way to engage more, and it's sort of, you can have a spillover room. you will need a second person, because unfortunately it comes to the point where you will need to either pay the money to increase your size or beg, plead with another organization, say, hey, can we have your 1,000 rooms? That would be lovely, please. So the way around it is that you can actually split it. I think, thanks Karen for sharing the speed test. All right, so the way around it is stream your session. So a couple of ways to do that. A lot of these platforms have upgraded their functionality and allow third-party apps to plug in, whether it's YouTube or Vimeo, or Twitch. You stream that same content to a secondary platform. It could be Facebook Live. Now, good and bad on this. If you're sending just a straight point and shoot content straight through the camera, it's not really going to matter. 100 attendees are going to get the same experience whether they're on Zoom or whether they're on YouTube Live. No big deal, because they're just receiving said content. If they're answering on the third-party polling app or third-party trivia app, no big deal, because you're going to get all that information back into your main session. So theoretically, you could have 100,000 people watching you and only 100 got to type to you in the session. And they're all, well, I must say some of these polls won't handle 100,000 people, but you get the idea. You have a lot of people on that poll. But you are limited eventually. The other challenge is if you're wanting people to actually type to you, so if you've got 500 people attending and only 100 people can get in, and you still want the other 400 to be able to type to you, you're now left with only a couple of choices. You could use the social media side using the hashtag of your event to send in questions, and your moderator can flick questions, say, hey, Karen asked this question, Sylvia asked this question, whatever. You could do it that way. Or those same moderators will have to sit on that third-party app, whether it's Twitch or whatever it is that you decided to do, and type to them that way. Eventually, it comes down to there's only so many different hacks you can work with. There are ways of splitting your stream to multiple places. There's a few different ones. I have used XSplit. And there's another one called Black Magic, and that's actually you go by the box, Black Magic Designs. I'm just going to grab that link mid-call and flick it to you because you've asked the question, so I'll give you some stuff. Handy. And so you can actually have this split out to multiple places. There's Black Magic Design, and I'll go find XSplit mid-call as well. Found it. Yep, found it. All right, good. Thanks, Karen. While you're coming, while I go find the links. And that's a good example of supporting a panelist.
Well, Ben's typing. So at the moment within the webinar that we're in right now, I can go, there's a button on the side. I can go straight to live on Facebook, live on YouTube, live on Twitch, and custom streaming. It's the same through the meeting. It's always best to plan ahead. So you can actually then have an overflow. Once you max out to your 100, it then sends people to where the streaming link is. I think if we, go back to a lot of the learnings we had from Sybil, plan ahead even earlier from that and let people know when they're registering that this is going to happen. The first 100 people get in, off you go to, sorry, I'm just seeing a question from Sybil. Off you go to the live link. So just let people know in advance, because when they're trying to get into your session, if they can't and it's really difficult for them to know where to go next, they probably just won't come at all. And it's a real challenge when you're close to that 100. When you're close to 100 and that's what your events, your platform is maxed out at, how many people are going to show up on the day? You find that you get a lot more registrations than you do. So if you are taking it as registrations, it's a really good way to manage it. You know how many people have registered. There's going to be a certain percentage that don't show up. If it's, say you've got 112 registered, you can probably be pretty safe to say that you'll have less than 100 actually show up on the event. If you've got 300 registered, then absolutely you need to have that second live stream already in play. But we've had the same thing before. We're like, we need to expand. And we got a fraction of the people that we wanted, and we put all this money towards increasing our package, and didn't end up being able to use it. So yeah, just really think about how close you are to that 100 when you're doing the event, and have a plan in place and make sure that's communicating really well.
Wow, and so Ian just said he's got 300
Yeah,
registrations. So I think it's potentially, you may have to shell out potentially, or if you go towards what Civil sort of gets up to, is maybe there's a premium package. Maybe like it's some sort of split. It is a challenge. Unfortunately, it's almost like the risk that like airlines take with overselling a plane. What if they all turn up? Oh, Civil's come up to say hi because she's definitely got some experience.
There's also you know, there is an argument for limiting and saying, you know, you can be a wait list, or, you know, we can send you out stuff later, you can come along to the next one. It's that fear of missing out. So I don't know if that's a possibility as well, but is building that fear of, I mean, if they're going to miss out, they're going to register more quickly. And, you know, you've got that sense of, you could have a wait list of, you know, if you've got 100 places, you could have a wait list of 50 and say, be on standby. We will send you the registration link if you know, on the day, if there is a space for you. So you could kind of build that, and it shows how valuable it is and how many other people really want to be there. So
and this is fantastic too, Ian, that you've got likely 300 registrations. I'll give you a case in point that Karen alluded to about what it can be like when you've got a lot of people in a session. So I've run live events with 6,000 endpoints, all in the same webinar, where they're all in Hong Kong. And so we're dealing with partly second language at the same time. They're all young, and they're all doing experiments live at the same time in their room. So lots of Q&A and support in the back end was required. We've also run programs with people like Dr. Carl, who, you know, reasonably celebrity type in Australia. And so someone like Dr. Carl is going to drag a lot of schools into a connection that he runs. Now, I can tell you that, okay, we're in an adult session talking about small business and online programs. We're getting some great feedback and questions. This has been a great session for us. You try students who want to talk to Dr. Carl and ask their science questions. Do you reckon you're going to get 1,000 questions? Yes. So you need, in that particular, this is probably the most extreme example of possibly happen in Australia. You've now got literally, like we ran with 10 moderators just for the Q&A alone. There was an entire Google sheet set up with people. One person had their one job, wasn't to evaluate the question. All their job was to copy and paste it across for the people to moderate it in the first place. And then there was someone who was the head moderator, so to speak, to work out which question would they feed back up to Dr. Carl to answer live in front of 100 schools. So that's extreme. But it was deliberate planning behind the scenes to make sure that it came off seamlessly. And during that session, we would have question pre-prepared from the audience. So there'll be a video coming in from another school from Western New South Wales or something. We would queue up that video, they'd send it to Carl, we'd queue it up live, and he would answer it. Now, by the way, when we did that video, we didn't have that like a YouTube link and hope to the best that it might even play and have ads turn up across the kids. We didn't want that. We had the real video sitting on our computer. We played the full file from a computer that was dedicated with a moderator, came up beautifully in high definition. He would answer. We would then go to AHA slides and ask the entire group, what do you think, A, B, C, or D? They would answer it, and then Carl would give them the right answer. There was a whole structure to be able to make it vibrant and interesting. So, challenge Ian. See what you can do about making it interactive with the number of people that you're looking at getting in there. They may not go for it. They may want to sit back and just quietly absorb said information. But having that interactivity can make a huge difference in terms of how it feels. But yeah, do the planning.
Absolutely. And I think if you have limited to 100 and you're really anticipating 300, it's really the only two options are you either upgrade to a larger package or you do it as a live stream. So you can run it within Zoom. So all the interactivity that you would usually have in Zoom, but it's just going out as a live stream, and that's where your people, your audience is watching it through. And then, yeah, something else to help with that interactivity, whether it's a hashtag for questions to be able to come through, or, there's many different ways that you can do that. So they've still got that crossover of information. Congratulations of having such a great event. Good planning, good marketing.
Absolutely. And actually, going to throw something to you as well. Just say that your event has this wonderful guest that everyone wants to meet, like, the global TEDx speaker of what you do. And you know what can happen? And I've seen it before, sadly, it has happened. In the green room, prior to going live to those 300 people, everyone gets super excited that this celebrity type person turns up into their room to talk, and we're all getting ready to get going. What can happen is that in the midst of the excitement of, oh my gosh, this person's here, I literally get to meet them, I'm talking with them now, oh my gosh, you know what gets forgotten? Does their microphone work? Do they have their PowerPoint presentation queued up and literally ready to go? Are their cameras working in a way that's going to be sufficient to what they're doing? Don't get lost in the hype. Just for a moment, go, hey, can we just chill for a moment, please? And get it sorted, because it'll make it much better. Now, every now and then, your super hyper important guest is used to presenting properly on stage. Now, let's be honest, we're 2 years into COVID now. A lot of us have done online presentations. However, there's still people out there that really just understandably not that comfortable with doing this thing. And yet they've got great content to share. So what does this mean? Be prepared to back up them. If they're clearly struggling, frozen, camera shy, it happens. Feel free to pop on, a bit like Karen's sitting next to me right now. I'm not a person who's scared of the cameras, you can kind of tell. But if they're struggling, jump to interview style. Ask them the questions and they'll be okay.
It works really well, and it does help change that engagement. So you might notice that we've had, all three of us up, sometimes it's two of us, just to, create something a little bit more dynamic on screen as well. So I think that's really, really true. Every session we do with external providers and guest speakers, we run a tech test. Now, yesterday we ran our tech test half an hour before the event. This morning, because it was a second of the same program, we just did it 15 minutes before. But be prepared that you've got to factor that in. Doing a tech test is probably fundamentally one of the most important things you can do for your event. Once you've got all of your comms plan, you know what platform you're using. If it's something that you're testing out new things, do multiple tech tests. Do a tech test a week out and even do a practice run through. As Ben said, we've done quite a few of these training sessions. We've had Civil work with us previously, so we felt quite confident with our pre-planning meetings that a half an hour tech test was going to be sufficient. We even just as simply as doing your shared screen and having your PowerPoint presentation or whatever presentation in full screen mode. So I see it all the time with presentations that someone shares their screen and it's not in full screen. So you've got to see everything and then they press full screen and off they go. Even something as simple as that. Have it pre-prepared. It's already on full screen. So when you share, it just looks that little bit better. So those kinds of things, testing your audio and your microphone. As Ben can say, things go wrong. Updates happen. We were running a whole series of sessions and none of our presenters last week could share audio. The little button in the corner that says, share screen with sound was grayed out. You couldn't actually click it. Zoom had done a great update about audio. There was a whole thing about musicians' audio. So I think they were, really trying to change how audio was working. But something as simple, a fundamental feature that was already there, got dropped off. Now, it was fixed within 24 hours. But it was an unexpected update that caused a problem. So, systems updates can change. So even if you've done a tech test the week before and you've run through everything in immaculate detail, it was perfect, still do your tech test the morning of your event. The bigger the event, the longer and more complicated the tech test. Have your moderators, have your technical person, have all your guest speakers, if possible, in that session as well. And get them to stay in. If it's a webinar or a meeting and they're not presenting till the end, I would just say stay in the session, because as soon as they leave and they come back in, you never know if something's changed.
100%. And also one thing that comes up with those mega events, how, let's just pretend we're not talking online for a moment. let's pretend we're going to a real conference at some fun place. They've always got an information desk. Where is the room for the workshop presentation or the seminar or the lecture or whatever it is that you're going on? Now, those mega ones, if you've ever been to the US, some of them can have like 20,000, 30,000, 100,000 people at those conferences. There's like literally several hundred things happening at once. Now, think about what that's like for the information desk. You've got people coming in, they've lost their ticket, they've lost their, guess what? The ticket for us online is literally the link.
Yeah.
So if you, yeah, and it's very standard for I have lost my link. It happens all the time. So if you've got a big event, and I suspect, Ian, we're picking on you, but you've got 300 registrations, you're probably going to get someone losing their link. So I suspect strongly what you need to do is make sure you've set up a, resend out 1 hour prior. You bet not everyone gets it. It gets caught in spam. Actually, I'm sorry for the government types listening in, but sometimes it genuinely gets blocked by spam filters. Large companies and large government organizations don't always let the reminders through. And often the provider is left there trying to sort the problem. So know that can happen. So have someone ready on email to look after people. Oh, yes, Sybil.
SMS as a channel. Yeah, so that is exactly right. A lot of marketing gets stuck in, emails especially get stuck in spam filters. If you have the ability to use SMS, they get through. So when you're collecting registrations, collect a mobile number, and then that final reminder with, an hour before with just a reminder, we're looking forward to seeing you. If just in case, here's the link. That is a really good way of making sure it will get through. Only hesitation there is if you've got a non-techie audience, sometimes they can struggle getting it from their phone to the laptop, but at least they've got it, and that's a separate problem, which again, your information desk would help.
Oh, it's perfect. Thanks so much, Sybil. And that actually brings up the point, information desk during the session. When you had the breakout rooms, just say that we decided to make this a big deal and we had lots of people involved and we wanted to do breakouts. And we can't really do it in a webinar, but if we were doing it in a meeting where we trusted everyone in the room and it's all okay, we could do that. But you know what happens? Some people, because they keep changing the configuration, some people can't find room 3 or room 5 or whatever it is. Please have someone still sitting in the middle of the main space, and they're the ones that are sending the people to the right spots. It's important because it makes it so much more functional. You can force it. I know in Zoom, you can pre-enroll them into the rooms, whether they like it or not, and you press a button and it shoots them out to where they've got to be.
Yeah.
Boom, out they go.
A very good way, and you can actually ask those questions. If you know you're doing breakout rooms in advance, you can ask those questions. So you already know. Anything that you can plan ahead is really important. And I know we're running short on time, so we've just got a question about how do you send that cluster SMSs to hundreds of people? Sybil, I know that you've
Yeah, so there are a number of different platforms that do it. If you Google broadcast SMS, there are some systems where you can set up really complex flows where, if somebody doesn't respond to an email, we'll send them an SMS. You can actually kind of have if-then customer journeys where they'll have all sorts of different channels. But if you literally just search for broadcast SMS, there are a bunch of services that do it. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for that response. Now, we have a couple of minutes left, everyone. Please, this is your chance to ask your questions. It's been great to be able to really focus and help on the problems that you guys have at hand at the moment with a lot of the questions we've had coming through. Ben has supplied lots of contact details for us, and we will be sharing all of that in our follow-up manual and recordings that you'll get next week. But we do have a few moments if you want to put anything else in the chat or the Q&A. This is your chance.
What I will do is, and I'm actually doing it right now, can't help it, try to avoid dead air. Like, the Q&A, and they do thinking music. It's something, just something, while people get time to That's right.
I'll provide my own, it's fine.
No, it's very good. Oh, interesting question. Mary just asked, think of connecting a phone to a Zoom as a second camera. Okay idea? Yes. 100% can be done. What you do is seeing as you mentioned Zoom, click share screen, make sure you've already tested this, and you literally choose the device. It comes up with a little thing to press, and booyah, that's now a phone. but test it, please. Apple plays nicer than the other products. The other products usually need a secondary app, but have a little play and you can get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the things that Sybil was saying, thinking about phones as a device, those SMS, a lot of people do use their phone to watch or to listen to their webinars. So that sort of big SMS with a link, they're just going to click on it and they're going to do everything on their phone. So that can really save a lot of tech costs as well.
I like this question, Mary. To answer it, just say, what Mary's alluding to with the question she just sent us is, how do you mute your microphone? I'm assuming it's on the second device, the phone. So the challenge is that if you've got two microphones, one in your computer and one here, and you put both microphones on, you get this screeching loop and it's not great. So make sure you've tested this first. Dump your audio off your phone straight away. No audio is banned in this room if you're going to do this. Secondly, also mute the microphone on that app as well. Now, all you then got to do is on your mouse or whatever it is, click that second phone, this thing, and make that spotlighted. And so what you do is you can talk over it while you move it around. Everyone can see what's going on. So your microphone, it's getting a little funky in your head to think about this, but your microphone's being controlled by the computer and the vision's being controlled by your phone. But if you have both microphones going at the same time, it doesn't work.
Yes, it's painful to the ear for everyone involved. And again, that's why we continually go back to testing, planning and testing. Anytime you want to add any new element to your program, test it. You will never be sorry that you did more practice tests. You will only ever have regrets if you didn't test enough. Excellent. So I think that is it from everyone. Thank you so much for your great questions. Thank you for being part of our program today. It is all about us being able to share our experiences, what went wrong. That's why we show you what it looks like behind our virtual backgrounds or underneath the office. And there are so many different tips and tricks, and we, as I said, will share them in the manual. We will also share a copy of the recording of a couple of other training sessions we've run when we go into a lot more detail about lighting, sound, and setting up your space and doing engagement during your session. Today, we're really focused on that design, what you do before, your marketing, your audience, always being in the forefront of your ideas and planning, and that design, so designing online events. So a big thanks once again to Sybil from Atomic Tangerine and Ben Newsom from Physics Education, and it was great to have everyone here, and hopefully we'll have a chance to connect with you all again soon. So thanks very much, everyone. Bye-bye.